Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Samantha Zimmer, and I just wanted to get on here today and talk about the new COVID vaccine that's going to be coming out. This vaccine is being developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, and it's about to go into phase 3 trials. So we have those results from the phase 1 and phase 2 human clinical trials, and I just kind of wanted to go over those with you guys today. The media is going to do their best job to sway you either completely for the vaccine or the opposite and just make it completely anti-vaccine. And the truth lies in between those two camps. And what I want to do is just present to you the results that have come through the first phases of this human trial with the COVID vaccine and let you decide for yourself if this is something that is going to be good or not so great for you. So let's unpack some of these results. What they did with phase 1 and phase 2 for this clinical trial, they took 45 people and they split them up into different groups. So they had one group that was given a low dose of the COVID vaccine at 10 micrograms, one that was given a medium dose at 30 micrograms, and then one that was given a high dose at 100 micrograms. And then they had a placebo group also. They did the first shot of just whatever group they were in, and then 3 weeks later, they gave them a booster shot of the COVID vaccine. Some of the positives that have come through with the results from this first phase 1 and phase 2 of the clinical study were that every single group, low, medium, or high dose, ended up having an increase in the IgG antibodies to the COVID virus, which is awesome because that means that this did elicit an immune response, which is what we want a vaccine to do. The problem is they didn't study it long enough. This one only had 2 weeks of looking at those antibodies. So phase 3 will definitely look at that longer and we'll see if those antibodies stay high. But for right now, just in those 2 weeks, they had an 8 to 50 times increase in the IgG antibodies compared to people who just donated their blood after they had the coronavirus infection. So we did have an immune response, which is good. We don't know if it's going to provide protection long term yet. That's what phase 3 will be able to tell us, if it's going to be a little bit more effective of a vaccine, but it does show increase in antibodies. So what are some of my concerns with the phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trial results then? And this is something that you will not hear in the mainstream media. If you dig into the study and you see what the vaccine reactions were, 50 to 75% of the participants after their first injection had side effects of COVID. This included fever, fatigue, chills, muscle pain, and headache. And they ended up actually getting rid of that high dose group because they had such bad adverse effects to the vaccine. They only went through with the small and medium dose group after that to get their booster shot. And with the booster shot, they had 75 to 100% of participants get a fever, fatigue, or headache. And I have the results actually right here. I'll put them up to the camera so you guys can see. And this is going to be linked on the actual video here also. But you can see, it's kind of hard to see. But this is the first shot. These are all the different reactions. And this is a 0 to 100% scale here. And then this is after the second booster shot. So I'll link this so you guys can go through it and see the results for yourself. But there were significant adverse reactions. And they said in the study that the average timeline for these symptoms, they peaked at about day 2. And then they lasted for an average of 7 days. So that is set a whole week of bad COVID-like symptoms for the first and second shots there. So with those adverse reactions that were pretty high for most participants in the study, the most concerning one to me was that 4% of the participants actually ended up with grade 3 reactions. So that is a severe reaction. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, that is considered a severe, medically significant, not immediately life-threatening, but hospitalization is indicated for that type of reaction. And so that's 4%. Obviously, we'll see in phase 3 that will most likely decrease from 4% because that's pretty high. If we extrapolate that data out, if we're going to give this vaccine to 100 million Americans, that's 4 million Americans that could end up in the hospital needing medical attention. And as of right now, we've had 4.58 million Americans that tested positive for coronavirus since the very beginning. And only a fraction of those people have ended up in the hospital seeking medical treatment. So it's definitely something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on, seeing where the next phase goes and if these adverse reactions decrease at all. So overall, phase 1 and 2 showed us that they made a vaccine that can produce some antibodies. We know that those antibodies stick around for at least 2 weeks, and we know that people are having adverse reactions from just the first shot. 50 to 75% are getting fever, chills, headache for up to a week. So I wouldn't say that this is as promising as some of the media is portraying it to be. So going into phase 3, we have some questions we need answered. First of all, we need to know if these antibodies are going to stay high or if they're going to go back down and not protect us against this virus. With phase 3, they'll go about 6 months and see if those antibodies are still there. Next, we need to find out how this vaccine is going to affect different ages. So this was only done on 18 to 55-year-olds. And we know that the COVID virus is actually most deadly for those who are 65 years and older. So we need to know how this vaccine is going to affect that older population. It does concern me that these are all 18 to 55-year-olds that are healthy and they are having all these adverse reactions. What happens when you have someone who is older and has diabetes or hypertension or autoimmune disease or any other disease? And how is this vaccine going to affect them? So that is what we need to find out in phase 3, how this is going to affect the majority of the population of America that is not healthy. And we should be getting those phase 3 results by fall, early winter. So keep your eye out for that. We'll do another video and I'll let you guys know what those results showed. Another thing to keep in mind is that viruses mutate. And as this virus mutates, this vaccine is not going to protect you against those mutated versions of the coronavirus. It's only going to be effective, if it is effective, with the antibodies staying high once we find out if that is a thing in phase 3. It's only going to protect you against this one version of it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So thank you guys for letting me share all these results with you. I'm going to link the study in the comments so you can check it out yourself and read through everything. I just really want everyone to be educated and know what they're putting into their body and don't just blindly follow the media. Be able to make your own decisions and research and find out if this is something that is going to be good for you and your family. So have a blessed day, and I hope you guys found this helpful.